welcome to the second in the Make Learning Better video series for 2017. In the first one, I focused on organisational skills and the 5 big hot topics. In this one, I'd like to focus a bit on what I think is the precursor to all people skills, and that is self-awareness. Why is self-awareness so important? Well, all the data, and remember we're a data-driven organisation or data-driven society right now, says that teams with self-awareness and people with self-awareness are far more likely to be effective, and we'll see far greater results from them. In fact, the figures are 68% more effective for teams, and in fact 70% more effective for individuals the greater your own self-awareness. So what is self-awareness? There are some, there's a pretty good definition, and you can read it in 1,000 pieces of literature, but let me give you what I think are the 3 key components. First of all, emotional self-awareness. You're able to read and recognise and understand your own emotions, and see how they impact on others, both on their work performance and relationship. And I'll come back and talk a bit more about that one later on. There's self-assessment, that you can actually work out your valuation of your strengths, your limitations, your growth points, your self-confidence, where you have a positive sense of self-worth, and how that's going to influence what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. And the start of these whole things is to be critically self-reflective. And the ways you can do that there are 3 key ways, I think. First of all, look back and play it forward. Rachel Robertson says this, does as everybody else. You can do that by journaling. You can do that by having someone who will give you frank and fearless feedback about what you think are big issues. I'll never forget a piece of feedback I was given by what now is a wonderful principal who was an equally wonderful deputy principal. Office, and do not come out till you can be a decent human being, because your mood is actually destroying the entire school. Even though I believe my mood was perfectly justified, and everybody in my school, from the children to the staff to the parents, probably at that stage all could have jumped off a jetty, and I would have been very happy about it, but was clear enough to say to me, you're not handling your emotions right now. You may have reasons for that, but your game face is actually causing us a huge problem. So having someone who will give you frank, fearless advice or journal or reflection. The second one is actually to find out some quantitative information about your personality type, to have a look at what are your strengths and weaknesses, and then that enables you to think about, well, who are on my team? So, for example, there are many tests, psychometric tests available. That's what it's called. Some of us who are my age actually did them in school and then forgot about them, but they're incredibly important. One of my other strengths or weaknesses is that I like the next bright shiny thing that comes along. I like to be innovative. I like change. And so I will actually look at there's something over there I could do right now. So if I'm like that and I surround myself with people who are like that, what's that going to do for the stability of the organisation that I'm in? You need to actually have people who complement your skills. And the first thing about that is actually to get a deeper appreciation of how to do that. Now that's available through a whole range of testing these days, some of which is actually free, and on the website I'll actually give you some hints about some of the ones that are free, and there are others that you pay for. Of course, the more you pay for them, the more accurate they are, but they're a really good way to do it, and it gives you an example. The next one, I believe, is really critical, is to invest in a mentor, a coach, and a champion. Now, a mentor is someone with more experience who's going to be able to help you, often with, I understand why you feel like that. But a coach, and I've now been coached for a couple of years, and I've also undertaken the training to become a coach, will actually work with you about how you can develop more questioning, more techniques around your whole range of personal strengths. What I did forget to mention when I was talking about doing some psychometric testing is also I'm very heavily involved and keen on people actually looking at doing the character strengths through the VIA character survey. And again, that will be on the website, because that shows you what are your top 5, but also other areas that you might like to look at. And also it's a great exercise to do and see how you complement everyone on your staff. Start from what's strong and not what's wrong. I was talking about mentoring. and coaching. The other one that I think that sometimes we forget is actually to have a champion, and to be champions for people, to have someone who's got your back, who will actually further up in the hierarchy will say, this person does really good work, this person, and to be self-aware enough to know and go and ask someone to be your champion. It's not to be just a referee, it's to be someone who will actively advocate for you. Most leaders actively advocate for people on their staff, and so it's really keen to actually use the word champion. It's something we tend not to do in our lives, in our organisation. The other one that I talk about is that you can put them all together by journaling, and this is part of the great self-reflection tool, that you can look at how you've dealt with a situation. I talked about when I talked on the organisational video of when you write your list, after you've done your list and you've done the task, is to reflect on how well it went. Now that's not only, yes, I got everything done today and da-di-da-di-da, but it's also, yes, that meeting went really well. These are some of the things I think went exceptionally well with the meeting. These are some of the areas I think I should develop. One of the ones that was always an issue for me to develop is to listen more, to practice active listening and deeper listening. And so over a length of time, I've come up with a whole range of techniques that enable me to listen more when people are speaking, from clasping my hands and pressing my nails in so I know, oh, don't speak, Lynn, concentrate and don't think about what the bright shiny thing is out the wall, to sitting on my hands. But it is the stuff of, I wouldn't have picked it up unless I was doing the reflective work. So what I want to say is that these are all incredibly key, and they are important that you then identify your stress factors. What are your stressors? And you can pick up your stressors by working out, by looking at your journal, by looking at what's happening, by knowing that these things may stress you, and therefore then slow down and monitor them as you go. But once you're aware of it, it can just be a joke. Like being awareness, I could say, yeah, I know this about myself, but then you have to take responsibility. You have to take responsibility for your actions, your own actions, and how you interact with other people. Because otherwise, it's just a useless piece of information that is something that you're doing nothing with. The challenge is to do something with it. And the first area that I would talk about you doing something with is that self-awareness leads to self-management. And there are 5 competencies that are generally talked about in self-management. First of all, which is the one we talk about with kids all the time, it's self-control. We don't talk about it with ourselves as much, but we should. Keeping disruptive emotions under control, impulses, and keeping them in a way that you know that you're managing them. You are going to deal with them, but you're not going to deal with them in a way that's going to cause major disruption inappropriately in an organisation. The next one is transparency. To be transparent, maintaining standards, and people who've heard me I talk about the Hale principle: honesty, authenticity, integrity, and love. And transparency is about the honesty and the integrity part. That what you see is what you get, what you say is what you do, and that you practice that, and you really work on how that's going to be. The next one is managing yourself and responsibilities. That is about being organised. Another dear colleague always says, under promise and over deliver. In leadership, it's actually quite hard, particularly if you're caught in middle management where you're between people with competing demands. But it is the stuff of, look at your responsibilities, work out your organisational skills. How do you do that? How do you work it out on a daily basis? The next one, number 4, is adaptability or flexibility, that there are going to be changing circumstances. How you as a self-manager are going to do that. This is one of the ones people hate. People who hate change. I can't deal with it. I can't do it. It's not going to happen. I'm going to say it is going to happen. And one of your absolute techniques that you have to learn in self-awareness is, what are your triggers? What are the things that you do really well and the things that you do really badly? So for example, for me, one of my things that I'm not good at, because I like the bright shiny thing and I want to move on to the next thing every time, is that my editing skills are appalling. I let typos go through all the time. It humiliates me at times, even on my Facebook posts, about how did I let that get through? How can I edit it? Well, I edit it on Facebook, but it never gets fixed on Twitter. But it meant that I actually had to work with people who would redline my writing all the time, who would say, what did you mean by that? Why are you saying that? Why are you doing that? and becoming more adaptable with how I communicated, because writing was a significant part, but it was a part of my change that I didn't want to have as a self, I didn't want to change that, but you have to. And the final thing is, are you oriented to achieving? What are you trying to achieve? And have you actually put all the posts in place? Have you put the people in place? If you haven't, how can you go about doing that? But it's about managing yourself so that then you don't get stressed out of your brain when things aren't going well. Yes, they're not always going to. And another one in the series will talk about that. But this is particularly about how you can look at your own self-awareness and develop the skills to do that, because of course self-awareness and leading to self-management and then leading to relationships are the cornerstone of emotional intelligence, which is actually how we actually build our relationships with other people, how we develop the empathy to work with other people. And whatever we say about data-driven organisations and leadership and having great ideas, and even if you're developing a product or getting kids through school, in the end they're nearly all people businesses. So thank you for watching today. I'll be back in a couple of weeks with another video. I hope this has given you some clues on self-awareness. As I said, if you liked it, please comment, please share it. Please look at the website, which has some brief notes as well. Thank you very much.